side. NASA astronaut and then Cosmos probe has come next to him. With Alexei Zabritsky and Sergei Ryzhikov, also of Roscosmos in that mix. And right there in the middle, almost standing, if you will, from our perspective, is Expedition 7 for Commander and Jack's astronaut to communication. From this view, they are looking
SpaceX Dragon hatch is open at 12:14, and we're requesting the go for the LIO change.
Copy 12:14 Zulu hatch opening time, and you are go for LIO swap.
And there you heard that the hatch is open and confirmed at 7:14 a.m. Central Time. As the hatches are open between the SpaceX Dragon racing spacecraft and the International Space Station. Again, 7:14 a.m. Central, 8:14 a.m. Eastern. And you heard also the swaps of the LIO canisters. That's the lithium hydroxide cartridges that scrub carbon dioxide inside of the Dragon spacecraft on the ride to the International Space Station. Also, Nicole Air is out of view, but from this perspective, looking up, she is operating the Axiom Mission 14 to help refresh the air and cycle air between the two craft as they continue a few more procedures before floating across and into the orbiting laboratory for the first time.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop for LIO cartridge.
And for LIO cartridge.
Just looking for clarification on your next action there. We're tracking LIO cartridge sealing per 2.102 step 6.5.
Oh, okay. In my procedure, I had some instructions on this decal for section. For section 4, the instructions on the decal.
And copy that, Peggy. We'll defer to the instructions in 2.102.
Okay, that's where we are.
Communications between Axiom Mission 4 Commander Peggy Whitson and the teams on the ground as they were talking about the swapping of the lithium hydroxide cartridges as the hatch has been opened between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station just a few moments ago at 7:14 a.m. Central Time. And this is a view inside the International Space Station looking forward, if you will, as the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard are looking up. That is towards the space-facing port of the Harmony module. That's where they are in now. If you were to keep going forward, if you will, that is the forward port, which currently is occupied by Dragon Endurance from a crew of 10. And a great microgravity demonstration of the camera that Alexei Zabritsky is using to help document and be a part of the welcoming committee for Axiom Mission 4 here in the next few moments.
Dragon, Houston on the big loop, Just to confirm, we want to make sure IMV duct installation is complete before we do LiO cartridge sealing.
Yes, the IMV duct installation is complete. My bad, I didn't get it reported.
Houston, copy.
Switch views from pretty much the point of view of what the astronauts have been looking at. From what we have seen, they were looking up and see the shot up into that node to zenith hatchway of the Harmony module. That is Nicole Ayers, NASA astronaut, just on the other side of that APAS hatchway, working with the Axiom Mission 4 crew. You heard them talking about IMV ducting and LiO cartridges. That IMV ducting helps mix the air of the International Space Station environment with the air inside of Dragon. Also looking to seal up some of those lithium hydroxide cartridges that are used to scrub the carbon dioxide from the air in the spacecraft on their journey to the International Space Station. And that journey started yesterday morning, 1:31 a.m. Central Time, 2:31 a.m. Eastern, as they would launch the SpaceX Dragon, named Grace spacecraft, Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Pad 39A, NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And we chased down the International Space Station earlier this morning at 5:31, nearly 2 hours ago. 5:31 a.m. Central, 6:31 a.m. Eastern, a little bit more of a day's transit.
SpaceX Dragon arrival configuration is complete.
Copy.
SpaceX copy.
Continuing to target a welcome ceremony or welcome remarks in the near future at 8:35 a.m. Central Time. So a little bit more than an hour from now is Axiom Mission 4, the International Space Station, continuing to work through hatch opening procedures, but getting close, you can start to see a little bit of a window of opportunity that was just on the other side of astronaut Anne McLean and Nicole Ayers there, as they are working on IMV ducting, mixing the air of the station and Dragon, and lithium hydroxide cartridges, stowage and swapping out. Views of Axiom Mission 4, Commander Peggy Whitson, the first one across the APAS hatch, receiving great big hugs from Nicole Ayers and the Expedition 73 crew. Axiom Mission 4, welcome aboard the International Space Station. Pilot Shivanshu Shukla is the next one to come across, representing ISRO. It is his first space flight for Peggy Whitson, her return to the International Space Station on her fifth flight, second as a member of Axiom Space. Vishnevsky of ESA, representing the nation of Poland, and their first visit to the International Space Station is next to cross the hatchway, and warm hugs all around, and applause breaking out here inside of Mission Control Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, and Tibor Kapu, the fourth and final member of Axiom Mission 4, representing Cunor, the nation of Hungary, their first visit to the International Space Station as well. Great big hugs and handshakes across all members of Expedition 73 and Axiom Mission 4's Anne McLean and Nicole Ayers of NASA, along with Johnny Kim, Kirill Peskov, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Alexei Zabritsky of Roscosmos, and Takuya Onishi, commander of Expedition 73 and of JAXA, with handshakes and hugs for Peggy Whitson, Shivanshu Shukla, Sławomir Wisniewski, and Tibor Kapu. And with their arrival at the International Space Station, that now makes 288 visitors to the orbiting laboratory. Mission 4 is now aboard the International Space Station. Commander Peggy Whitson, in her return to the orbiting laboratory, her 5th flight. 3 is a member of NASA, and her 2nd as commander of Axiom and Axiom Space, a private astronaut mission, commander of Axiom 2 and leader of Axiom 4. Regaling the crew with smiles and stories. To her left, or our left from her viewpoint, to her right, Sławomir Wisniewski of ESA, Shivanshu Shukla to her left of ISRO, and Tibor Kapu on that far right-hand side of our viewpoint. The crew is safely aboard the International Space Station. Welcome again to Axiom Mission 4. And we are continuing to target a formal welcome remark from the crew and being joined by the Expedition 73 team as well. That'll be at approximately 8:35 a.m. Central Time. And from there, they will receive a safety briefing and begin their approximately 2-week mission aboard the International Space Station, in which they will participate in around 60 research investigations representing 31 countries, with more than 24 of those experiments sponsored by the ISS International Lab. There they all are, waving back in our coverage here inside of Space Station Flight Control Room.
Station Houston on 2. Thanks for the wave. Great to see everybody.
Houston Station, we're happy to be here. It's so great to be here finally. It was a long quarantine.
in the space station, we're going to wrap up our portion of the live joint coverage from Hawthorne. It's been an honor to support Axiom Mission 4 thus far, and we wish the crew a successful time on the space station. We're of course also looking forward to joining AX4 again when it's time to return home.
Ronnie, from launch to docking, it has been an absolute pleasure sharing this desk with you. What has been years in the making for India, Poland, and Hungary is now well underway. Axiom Space and NASA's joint coverage will continue from here through to the welcome ceremony as Peggy, Shubhanshu, Swavesh, and Tibor start their 2 weeks aboard the orbiting laboratory. Over the course of our crew's time on station, we will be producing mission updates from Axiom Space's own space station development facility in Houston, Texas. So we invite you to follow the progress of AX4 on axiomspace.com and through Axiom Space's social media channels.
So with that, on behalf of SpaceX, Axiom Space, and NASA, thank you all for tuning into launch. While our stream on X is coming to a close, coverage of the welcome ceremony now continues on NASA Plus, axiom.space/live, and Axiom Space's social channels. With that, we'll turn it back over to you, Joseph. Have a great morning, everyone, and go AX4.
Go AX4.
Thank you very much, Paul and Ronnie, and thank you for joining us on this morning's broadcast as we continue on with our live coverage of the arrival of Axiom Mission 4 to the International Space Station. A fourth private astronaut mission to arrive to the orbital outpost, the first since January of 2024. We just saw the crew of 4, including Commander Peggy Whitson, Shubhanshu Shukla, pilot of Israel, Swavesh Vishnevsky, and Tibor Kapu of ESA and Hunor, respectively, crossed the hatchway and into the orbital outpost for the very first time. We're continuing to follow along as we'll wait for the formal welcoming remarks that are currently scheduled for roughly 8:35 a.m. Central Time, so a little bit more than an hour to go as the crew continues to settle in. After you heard the remarks from Peggy Whitson mentioning the long quarantine and the ride up, which took a little bit more than a day's time to do so. The teams here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room and special guests in the viewing room at the back of your screen on hand to witness this special moment and also to be part of a handover period as the Orbit 1 team wrapping up their day's work, which certainly was busy. Saw the multiple burns as the Dragon pressurize the vestibule, the gap between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. That was that vacuum. They wanted to bring the atmospheric pressure equal to that of what's inside Dragon and Space Station, which is relative to here on Earth, which is about 14 psi, which is sea level. And once that was able to be accomplished, the pass hatch on the Space Station end was open. Shortly there followed by pressurization and opening up the Dragon hatch. And that would occur at 7:14 a.m. Central Time. And now goes the International Space Station settling in after a little more than a day's transit to the orbiting laboratory before the shortly welcome remarks again tracking around 8:35 a.m. Central. 5:31 a.m. Central Time with that launch, and then they would begin their transit with a sequence of burns to chase down the orbiting laboratory. Then earlier this morning, today's docking of the Dragon spacecraft, aptly named Grace. She said graceful docking for the craft to the International Space Station in the space-facing or zenith port of the Harmony module. And that contact would occur at 5:31 a.m. Central Time earlier this morning. And then the hatchways would then take about 2 hours or so to make sure all leak checks and inspections were performed step by step for both the teams inside the Dragon spacecraft and Axiom Mission 4, as well as the Expedition 73 crew for the International Space Station. And then the hatchways would open up to allow the crew to come on board. That would occur at just after the 7 o'clock hour. At 7:14 a.m. Central Time, and the hatchway would open, and Peggy Whitson, commander of Axiom Mission 4.
I see you, Johnny, and
she would lead the charge. It'll be her return to the International Space Station after commanding Axiom Mission 2, but also her 5th overall flight, 3 previous before Axiom, a member of the NASA Astronaut Corps, the key missions to the International Space Station.
I can do the voice check now if you'd like.
From there,
check in with PAO to see if they're ready.
here on the ground preparing for the welcoming remarks. We will see the astronauts aboard the International Space Station prepare for proper video and audio configurations before the formal remarks can be underway. That should occur here shortly.
Johnny, hey, we're rerouting video. Give us a couple minutes and then we'll let you know we're getting ready for a scene and voice check shortly.
Sounds good. Thanks.
This is Mission Control in Houston as we continue to prepare for the welcome remarks from Axiom Mission 4. Communications between the teams here in the International Space Flight Control Room, preparing to configure the appropriate cameras and audio to accomplish that welcome remark. And as Axiom Mission 4, it has arrived at the International Space Station after a little more than a day's transit.
ready for those scene and voice checks. Johnny, we have a good scene, good voice. Thanks for the check. Yep, and just a friendly reminder, we're looking to start the event at 13:35.
Great, 35 after, thanks.
Johnny, FYI, the current video that you are on is streaming live to NASA TV, just FYI.
It's okay if I turn it off and then turn it on to it's 4:35?
Sounds good. You can do that.
Good communications there between the team on the ground and the International Space Flight Control Room. Up to NASA astronaut Johnny Kim helping establish the good video and audio configurations for the upcoming welcome remarks that'll take place. Currently scheduled for